Hello, so this video is going to be a quick overview of potentially antiviral herbs and supplements. Now, there's a whole list I'm going to give you. You don't want to take all of these at once. Some of them might work better for you or your family member. And I always recommend it's better to work with somebody who's trained in herbalism. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. You don't have to work with me specifically, but there's tons of herbalists, TCM people, acupuncturists that have training in herbalism, registered herbalists that could potentially help you with herbs. But it's also good to have a bit of a home pharmacy for if anybody catches a cold or some other virus. Now, we have to be careful. We can't say that any of these treat or cure COVID because the FDA has been particularly aggressive about that sort of thing. And they don't like it when people say certain herbs or supplements might help with COVID. Unfortunately, I think there's probably bigger priorities they should be attending to in terms of adverse reactions and drug issues, but that's a whole other rant I'm not going to go into right now. So that said, I have to be careful with what I say. I'm just going to share some of these, and you can also do your own research. There are a couple here that have actually specifically had some research studies done in relation to COVID that I think I can safely mention. And then the rest haven't really been researched in relation to COVID, from what I understand. I actually looked up pretty much all of these to see if there had been any studies done. So I'm going to go over them somewhat quickly, and you can take some notes and maybe look them up afterwards. Once again, ideally work with an herbalist or someone who's trained in herbalism, but it's also just some of these you can also just get over the counter and help yourself with. You don't want to take all of these at once. I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, like 20 different things I'm going to go over. So in terms of herbs, maybe there's 3 or 4, or maybe even 1 or 2 that you might work with. And then there's some supplements that aren't herbs that might be vitamins or minerals or whatnot. So without further ado, let me discuss the actual herbs and supplements. Now, of course, we have our vitamin C, we have our zinc. Oh, and another thing, I'm not going to be giving specific dosages here. You can use the dosages on the bottle or look up potential dosages. Now with herbs, there's a lot of different ideas about what the proper dosages of herbs might be. One of my teachers was very much into higher doses of herbs, felt that would make them work better and that the risk was relatively lower with herbs than, for example, pharmaceutical drugs, so that there's not a huge risk in taking herbs at higher doses. But you want to start on a smaller dose and then work your way up. And then if you start having any side effects, then you stop and move it back down. You should also know that most of these herbs that I'm mentioning actually can be blood thinners. This is the one big caveat. If you or your family member is on a blood thinning medication like warfarin, Coumadin, then you probably want to find a different herb or supplement or talk to the doctor before using these. Now, in certain disease processes where clotting is an issue, perhaps the blood thinning properties might be a good thing. But most of these have some blood thinning issues. I actually only found a couple that do not have blood thinning issues. So you just want to be careful with that. And then a couple of them might be counterindicated, like if you have a thyroid issue and you're on thyroid medication. And also some of them might affect blood sugar. So if you're taking medicine for diabetes, it could potentially lower the blood sugar too much. Although I personally found I tend to have hypoglycemia. I don't have diabetes. I've been on some of these herbs that say they're going to lower your blood sugar, and I have not found that they lower it too much. I think they might lower it if it's too high, but that doesn't mean they're going to shoot it too low if it goes, if you already have normal blood sugar. But I can't say for certain. They haven't done enough studies on all these. We know that these herbs work through experience, through people using them for hundreds and thousands of years, but that's not the same as a double-blind placebo-controlled study in the Western sense. So with all that said, so let's go over the vitamins and minerals that we are all fairly familiar with in terms of helping with the immune system. That would be vitamin C, zinc. You don't want to take zinc all the time. You take that when you're coming down with your cold. So those two are very important. Vitamin D supplementation is critical. particularly if you have darker skin, because the darker your skin is, the less your skin naturally assimilates vitamin D from the sun. So taking a vitamin D supplement daily, particularly in the winter, but if you have darker skin, take it all year round, 1 to 4,000 IUs a day. I've seen some dosages put out there that are much higher, like 10,000 IUs. That might be if you had a very big vitamin D deficiency that had been confirmed through a lab, but you do want to be careful. Just because it's vitamin D doesn't mean it's totally safe. I had a neurologist tell me that vitamin D can actually cause some neuropathy if you take it in excess. And so to be careful with high doses of it. Now, he said that neuropathy goes away, but that if you overdose on B6, which often people take a lot of, that can cause permanent neuropathy. That would be like 50 milligrams a day or more for an extended period of time. So once again, you don't want to overdo the doses on some of these vitamins because they actually can cause some damage at the higher levels. So vitamins are different than herbs. Herbs are kind of like food, only in a powdered form. You're taking, a powdered version of the leaf or whatever. So it's not quite the same, but you do need to be careful with some herbs as well. All right, so I've gone over vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D, and let's see. So quercetin also is actually it's from a plant. It's found in like yams, like sweet potatoes and onions, and it is, I think it's a bioflavonoid or one of those types of things where it's anti-inflammatory, it has a lot of health benefits, but it's also a blood thinner, so you need to be careful with quercetin. But I think it might also have some antiviral properties. So QUERCITIN, quercetin, and people pronounce it differently. That's how I pronounce it. I don't know if I'm right or not. All right, so bromelain, which is pineapple enzymes, also blood thinning, but has been shown in a study that it might actually help reduce coronavirus. So that you can look that up and look up the study, probably do that easily with the search. So pineapple enzymes, olive leaf extract, a very good antiviral herb, has lots of other health benefits. It's pretty safe. I've taken it for like a year at a time and had no problems with it. Also has a tendency for blood thinning, so just be aware of that. But I think I've taken that with aspirin and it's not been a problem for me. So and aspirin's a blood thinner, so be aware that you don't need to be on a prescription medication to have a blood thinner. But olive leaf is also very good for chronic Epstein-Barr virus, any sort of herpes viruses, that sort of thing. Andrographis. Recently, the Thai government came out and said that andrographis could be used for like mild or / asymptomatic COVID. They did a study on it. It's actually very helpful for that. They have a different name for it, which I can't pronounce, but you can find it by looking up andrographis. So I actually just ordered some andrographis, so I can just have that available in case I don't think I've had COVID. Maybe I have, and it hasn't. Just didn't have any symptoms. So I've got some andrographis actually on the way after I checked out that study. Colloidal silver, much maligned and falsely maligned, because actually colloidal silver is pretty safe. The main side effect that you get if you take tons and tons and tons of it is that your skin turns blue. And that one guy who, I think they called him Papa Smurf because his skin turned like super blue after taking like silvery blue after taking tons of colloidal silver. He didn't die from colloidal silver. He died of something else finally, and he was old. So, you'll see these stories about it where they fearmonger like, oh, you couldn't get your skin will turn silver if you take it. You'd have to take a lot of it. And he knew he was taking a lot of it. That has also been tested in a petri dish, not with humans, that it can actually kill COVID in a petri dish. Whether that actually works with people, I don't know. But it's also known as an antiviral and antibacterial, and fairly safe. You just want to get a good colloidal silver. That's the question of how do you find good colloidal silver, which I won't get into. You have to research that. All right. So another herb that is an Ayurvedic herb that I actually like very much is Guduchi, Gudduchi. Guduchi. Guduchi does not have blood thinning properties. So if you are on a blood thinner, Guduchi might actually help you. Now you need to be careful if you're on metformin or diabetic medicine, because Guduchi can be hypoglycemic. But Guduchi, in addition to being an antiviral, has a lot of other health promoting properties. So it's actually good for your skin. So In Ayurveda, it reduces pitta. So that one is a good one. And then let's see, astragalus, which is another immune boosting herb. Now, the ones that I've mentioned so far, bromelain, olive leaf, andrographis, colloidal silver, guduchi, these have antiviral properties. And astragalus is like an immune booster. So that's a different, it might have antiviral properties too, but it's primarily used as an immune booster. It's going to boost your immune system. So the ones that boost your immune system, you need to be careful of if you are having autoimmune issues, because it will increase the autoimmune, and potentially if there's a cytokine storm going on, immune booster at that point might not be advised. However, I've talked to many herbal teachers, I mean, some of the best in the field, about this whole issue of side effects and things with these herbs, and they say that the side effects tend to be overblown and they tend to be rare. So I was in a call once in my internship, and someone had some psoriatic arthritis and she was young, and the practitioner recommended that she take astragalus. And I was like, why would you want to give that to her? Because that boosts your immune system, and she's got psoriatic arthritis, which will be aggravated by this. And well, I was wrong. The client took it. She came back. She said she was feeling better. So I'd asked my teacher about it and said, well, it kind of is more of an immune modulator potentially. So it really depends on the person, but you just want to be aware of that. Astragalus, from what I could research quickly, does not act as a blood thinner. In fact, it increases red blood cells. Now, is that counterindicated if you're worried about clotting? Red blood cells aren't the same as platelets. Platelets, I always call them platelets. I don't know why, because I always read it more than I heard it. So in my head, I always think of them as platelets, but they're called platelets apparently. You see my other videos and I'm calling them platelets, that's why. Anyway, so they increase red blood cells. This astragalus could potentially increase your red blood cells, so just be aware of that. Any sort of immune boosting herb, if you are worried about any sort of illness that might result in a cytokine storm, you want to take those immune boosters earlier on, probably not so much later on. So it's just I have no idea whether it would work for any specific virus or not. Just throwing that out there. Elderberry is well known as like an immune supporting herb. It's pretty safe, and there's not a lot of counterindications for it. For some reason, right when COVID came out, there's a lot of weird fear mongering about elderberry and internet forums, concerned about what I was just talking about, where could it boost your immune system too much if you were having like a big immune overreaction to COVID. I don't really think that's going to be much of an issue, particularly if you're taking it early on. You have some sniffles, you're thinking maybe I've got the coof, as they call it. Elderberry's probably fine. It's not going to hurt you. Rhodiola, this is actually it's an adaptogen, so it could potentially boost the immune system, but also be aware if you have autoimmune issues. But rhodiola also has a lot of great benefits. So RHODIOLA, rhodiola. So rhodiola, adaptogen, and immune supporting, at least I'll say. Ashwagandha, also an adaptogen, immune supporting, could potentially boost the immune system too much if you have autoimmune. And there might also be some counterindications if you're on thyroid medicine. Ashwagandha otherwise is very, very safe. I've been told that the young men in India, as soon as they hit puberty, they're given ashwagandha every day for the rest of their lives. So even though in the West, you can look it up and they'll say, we don't have long-term safety data, over in India, they've been using this for centuries and people take it all the time. So ashwagandha is relatively safe, and it's also very good for anxiety. It is definitely something that will support your overall health. It's something that I take daily. Okay, so here's some other ones. Turmeric, which is the turmeric that you have in your spice cabinet. That orange spice is also potentially can help with viruses, and it's anti-inflammatory, but also has blood thinning properties. So you want to be careful about too much turmeric. Cordyceps, this is a little fungus that grows on caterpillars. It has a lot of health benefits, also could potentially support the immune system, but it also has some blood thinning things going on there. So be careful with that. Echinacea is kind of the Western herb that we know of in terms of fighting colds and flus, usually more effective if you take it early on. And I really couldn't find whether it specifically had blood thinning properties, but I did read that it might interact with blood thinning medication. For the positive or negative, I'm not sure. So, and they are not sure. And that was like, the information on that website was like, they had studied this like 10 years ago. So, okay, licorice. Licorice can have some antiviral properties. That the side effect with this is that it increases blood pressure. Then I also read it might actually also have blood thinning properties, which makes no sense. It increases blood pressure and does that at the same time. But just be aware that licorice can do that. Licorice is also particularly good. Now, this is a licorice that actually has the, I can't pronounce it. It's the glycer, whatever it is, the GLYZZ stuff. That's the stuff that raises the blood pressure, and that's the stuff that is good for the viruses. That's the stuff that's taken out when you buy the licorice tablets for your stomach, because the rest of the licorice is soothing to your stomach, but it's that, whatever it's called, the lysericum. Sorry, I just can't pronounce it. I should look it up, but I'm just going to move on because I still have a couple more to go through and I want to keep the video short. Okay, so just that's about licorice. Garlic, as we know, can have antiviral properties, also blood thinning. And here's some that could potentially help support your fighting off infection. Resveratrol, which is in grape juice. And also it's in, and I wouldn't recommend wine, but resveratrol. EGCG, which is in green tea. So we know green tea has a lot of health benefits. You could drink some green tea, add a little bit of grape juice. So grape juice has a lot of sugar in it, so just be aware of that. And then lemon balm, also antiviral, it's good anti-herpes herb, but it also can impact the thyroid. So if you're using thyroid medication, you want to be careful, perhaps pick something else other than lemon balm. Also potentially has some blood thinning properties. So that was a lot I went over in a short period. So I'll just mention the ones that are not blood thinning, because there's only, in terms of the herbs, because there's only 4 of them out of that whole list. Guduchi, which can be hypoglycemic, but not blood thinning. Astragalus, which increases red blood cells, that might be another issue. Rhodiola, and ashwagandha. So 3 of those, astragalus, rhodiola, and ashwagandha, are more known for immune boosting or at least immune modulating properties. And then the guduchi, whether or not that has specific antiviral properties over a specific virus, I don't know, but it is a really good herb otherwise. So that's my list. If I learn anything else and I have some time, maybe I'll do another video. So I hope that was helpful. Now for myself, let's say I'm thinking I might be getting the coof. I probably, this is just for myself, I'm not prescribing anybody else. I probably would be taking colloidal silver, vitamin C, zinc. I'm already on ashwagandha. I already have guduchi in my cabinet, so I'll probably take some guduchi. I'm getting some andrographis, and I already have olive leaf, which I've taken safely. So I probably would be doing that for myself. That doesn't mean that's what you need to be doing. Oh, and vitamin D, and maybe even a little bit of elderberry. So that's, oh, and I've got quercetin too. I probably would be doing the quercetin. So for me, vitamin C, zinc, quercetin, possibly elderberry, vitamin D, ashwagandha, guduchi, olive leaf, andrographis. Oh, and I did also get some bromelain for the digestive enzymes, and which have other benefits that have absolutely nothing to do with viruses. So that's probably what I would be looking at. But for you, it might be different. The andrographis is possibly the most promising because there's been a study done. And if you go read the reviews, people will take that when they're coming down with something and they go, wow, it just got knocked out. It is very bitter and not everybody can tolerate it. So that's the other thing. Can you tolerate these things? So hope that was helpful, and good luck and stay healthy if you can. Thank you.